military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
Those words were spoken by President Dwight D. Eisenhower on January 17, 1961, just 3 days before he left office. A 5-star general, a man who helped shape the very system he was warning about, and one of his last acts as president was to sound the alarm. Hey everyone, welcome to Fireside Conspiracies QuickFire. I'm Nick, your host, and tonight we're going to look at a recent story people are starting to question. Since mid-2024, more than 10 American scientists, engineers, and researchers tied to NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, Los Alamos, fusion energy research, and advanced propulsion have either died under murky circumstances or simply vanished without a trace, leaving behind their phones, wallets, and keys. And this isn't the first time we've seen a pattern like this. Inventors who claimed breakthroughs in free energy or water-powered tech have faced sudden, suspicious ends for decades. Now, we're not here to prove a grand conspiracy tonight, and I want to be respectful to those we're going to discuss. These are real people with real lives, but we do want to examine some patterns because they're simply getting harder to ignore. With questions popping up about the history of free energy, water fuel inventors who met tragedy right after big claims, the recent cluster of deaths and disappearances, and the suppressing force that Eisenhower warned us about, the military-industrial complex, it seems like a good time to grab a drink, pull up a seat, and ask, why is the pursuit of free energy seemingly so deadly? I've been hearing about scientists disappearing for a while now in the background, but I didn't decide to really look into it until listening to a recent podcast and learning that yet another person has gone missing. James Strebel, host of the highly popular Weird Wednesday Conspiracy podcast, highlighted the most recent incident and gave his opinion on what's going on. I want to play some of that to start us off.
Another scientist has gone missing.
Another one?
This is the 10th.
Oh my God.
Peter Ducey. Carolyn Leavitt, who is the press secretary for the White House, he actually asked her today about it in a press conference. This is Ducey. There are now 10 American scientists who have either gone missing or died since mid-2024. They are all reportedly had access to classified nuclear or aerospace material. Is anybody investigating this to see if these things are connected? To which Levitt responded, I've seen the report, Peter. I haven't spoken to our relevant agencies about it. I will certainly do that, and we'll get you an answer. If true, of course, that's definitely something I think this government administration would deem worth looking into. So let me do that for you, which I call BS. They're not.
That's a roundabout way of like, I'm trying to give you a word salad to make you satisfied with this answer. To not
yeah, I'll look into it. I'll talk to somebody for you and we'll look into it. But number one, good for Ducey for asking the question.
Yeah.
Because this to me is the most unreported story in America right now. Nobody's talking about, like, your main stories are coming from the Daily Mail, which is a United Kingdom based publication. It's not even American. Like all the major journalism that's being done about this is happening overseas. This is my uneducated guess as to what's going on. I think they either are on the cusp of or they have free energy and they're trying to subvert it. Like they found a way to get away from natural gases and fossil fuels and to free up energy for the entire planet. And the amount of money and resources in the military-industrial complex
and big oil
is so tied up into all of that. And it's such, I mean, this is why we're always in a perpetual state of war, because it feeds the military-industrial machine. Mm-hmm. You know, we pay companies like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin to make weapons, and they want to make weapons. If we stop making weapons and we stop producing energy, then they're going to be out of money. That's the best guess I can come up with. I don't think it has anything to do with like aliens sense. Or disclosure. I think it's energy related. That's my,
because haven't we seen in the past that scientists have theorized or started to come up with ideas of how they can create like perpetual motion machines and
water-based
yes.
energy? Yeah.
Yes.
And they die or it gets shut up.
Yeah.
And you never hear from them again. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, there's been multiple cases of that where people are like, hey, I found this way to produce energy and you don't need gas, and they're gone. That's the best guess I have.
Now, this ties back to our Delta 10 episode and the struggle between the petrodollar and BRICS. In it, we looked at global events over a 6 to 10 year period that indicate the U.S. is trying to lock down energy supremacy. But what if that effort has been going on domestically for decades? Let's look at this situation and how that idea of free energy may play in. For decades, people who said they cracked free energy, zero-point energy, or water as fuel systems have run into serious trouble. And I'm going to give you some examples here. The most famous is probably Stanley Meyer. In the 1980s and 90s, he demonstrated what he called a water fuel cell, a device that allegedly split water into hydrogen and oxygen on demand to power a vehicle. He showed it working publicly, including on a famous dune buggy, and was able to attract investors. After a questionable court ruling where he was said to have committed fraud, Meyer died suddenly following a lunch with two potential Belgian investors. Witnesses say he ran outside yelling, "They've poisoned me! They've poisoned me!" The official cause, according to the coroner, was a cerebral aneurysm. No obvious poisons were found in his system, but his family and supporters question the entire thing to this day. And his work never made it to the mainstream. That may be the single most common theme we'll see tonight. Then there's Eugene Malov, a former MIT science writer and passionate cold fusion advocate. In 2004, he was brutally beaten and stabbed to death while cleaning out a rental property. Police and the courts tied it to a robbery stemming from a housing dispute with former tenants, and perpetrators were eventually arrested and convicted. But many still wonder if his vocal push for new energy research played any role. Now, it would be easier to pass off as coincidence if it stopped there, but that's just the beginning. You'll hear similar stories about Lester Hendershot and his alleged free energy generator. He was found dead in his workshop in the late 60s, officially ruled a suicide. There's Henry Moray and his radiant energy device, and more recent figures like Aaron Salter Jr., who reportedly worked on water-powered engines before his death in the 2022 Buffalo shooting. And of course, probably the most well-known is Nikola Tesla himself. In the early 1900s, Tesla dreamed of a global wireless power transmission system. He envisioned towers that could send electricity through the earth or the atmosphere so people anywhere could access it without wires. In 1901, the powerful financier J.P. Morgan gave Tesla $150,000, a huge sum at the time, to build a demonstration tower on Long Island called Wardenclyffe. Initially, the project was pitched as a wireless communication system to compete with the radio. But Tesla's ambition grew. He began working toward transmitting usable power on a massive scale, what many later interpreted as free energy available to everyone. When Tesla asked Morgan for more funding to expand the project in that direction, Morgan refused. He reportedly questioned how anyone could make money if electricity became freely available to all. The next thing we know, the funding dried up. Tesla ran out of money. The tower was never completed as a power transmitter, and it was eventually torn down for scrap in 1917 to help pay his debts. And of course, as soon as he died, the government swooped in and confiscated all of his research. To many, this is the perfect example of how financial interests can sideline revolutionary ideas that threaten existing business models. If electricity couldn't be metered and sold, the profit motive disappeared. The reoccurring theme, a promising demonstration or patent filing, followed by death, discrediting, and the technology disappearing. Skeptics call it coincidence, bad health, or overhyped ideas. Most objective observers, though, wonder about a troubling pattern of suppression and possibly assassination. Now, let's look at the story that's gaining traction right now. As you heard from James Strebel earlier, since mid-2024, media reports have highlighted a cluster of incidents involving people linked to sensitive U.S. research programs. Frank Maywald, a principal researcher at NASA's JPL with over 25 years of service, died on July 4, 2024 at age 61. No cause of death was publicly released, and reports note no autopsy was performed. On June 22, 2025, Monica Reza, an aerospace engineer who co-invented a high-performance nickel-based superalloy and had strong ties to JPL's advanced rocket propulsion materials, vanished while hiking in California's Angels National Park. She reportedly disappeared just yards from her companions on a well-trafficked trail. There were extensive searches, but nothing was ever found. Just 2 months before in New Mexico, Anthony Chavez, a former Los Alamos National Lab employee, disappeared while out walking, leaving all his personal items behind. And only days later in June, Melissa Cassius, an administrative assistant at Los Alamos with reported security clearance, vanished while walking along a road. Her phones were later found wiped clean. Nuno Loureiro, I hope I said that right, director of MIT's Plasma Science and Fusion Center and a leading expert in plasma physics and fusion energy, was shot and killed at his home in December 2025. Carl Grillmayer, a Caltech astrophysicist with NASA-linked work on galactic research and asteroid tracking, was gunned down on his front porch in February of 26. Retired Air Force Major General William Neal McCasland, who previously commanded the Air Force Research Lab and oversaw classified aerospace programs, vanished from his Albuquerque home in February of 26, leaving behind his phone, keys, and glasses. There's also Steven Garcia, who disappeared August of 25. He had top security clearance and oversaw sensitive assets related to non-nuclear components of U.S. nuclear weapons. Again, we have someone leaving their home on foot. Garcia was carrying only a handgun and a bottle of water, leaving his phone, keys, wallet, and car behind. Jason Thomas, who was linked with NASA's microgravity biology studies, disappeared in December of 25. And Michael Hicks, a JPL researcher who died suddenly of unknown causes, may have actually been the first domino to fall all the way back in mid-23. As you heard earlier, the White House has publicly said it's reviewing these cases. But why did a journalist have to call it out in the White House briefing room before anyone would talk about it? Some of these incidents have allegedly resolved elements, arrests in certain shootings, possible personal factors in others, but several remain unsolved with unusual details that keep fueling questions. So what might connect these threads? Let's go back to Eisenhower for a moment. He warned not only about the military-industrial complex, the dangerous overlap of the military, defense contractors, and government, but also about the scientific technological elite gaining too much unchecked influence, especially when research is heavily directed and funded by the state. When you look at the pattern, it can feel like any technology with the potential to truly disrupt the multi-trillion-dollar energy status quo faces extraordinary pushback, whether through patent secrecy orders, funding cuts, discrediting, or worse. Many of the recent cases cluster around advanced propulsion, fusion breakthroughs, nuclear research, and exotic materials, the exact frontier where black budget and paradigm-shifting energy tech have long been rumored to hide. Now, there is another obvious strong possibility: foreign influence. Many of these individuals had access to highly sensitive technologies with clear military and strategic value: propulsion systems, nuclear research, fusion energy. China, Russia, and other rivals have a well-documented history of espionage targeting U.S. labs like Los Alamos. Sophisticated operations, including recruitment, blackmail, or even targeted disruption to erode America's technological edge, are very real threats. This is one of the most straightforward explanations, and it's almost certainly what intelligence agencies and investigators are prioritizing. It fits the facts without requiring a vast domestic conspiracy. China, in particular, has a well-documented history here. The Wenho Lee investigation at Los Alamos in the late 90s raised alarms about stolen nuclear warhead data. Most recently, reports show over 150 former Los Alamos scientists were later recruited to contribute to Chinese military projects. Projects that include hypersonics, submarines, and advanced weapons. China's Thousand Talents plan had drawn FBI scrutiny for allegedly helping transfer sensitive U.S. research. Russia has also been active. In 2022, a Russian hacking group targeted multiple U.S. nuclear labs with phishing attempts aimed at scientists. This is why most analysts and investigators treat foreign espionage as one of the first and most straightforward explanations when cleared personnel in these fields die or disappear under unusual circumstances. It doesn't require a vast domestic conspiracy, just targeted efforts to erode America's technological edge. And it could be that the real question it begs is, how did we leave our people so vulnerable? That said, even if foreign actors are behind some or many of these cases, the echoes of those decades-old free energy inventor stories force us to question a narrative pushed by the very suppressors of that free energy. Here's the bigger picture. Whether the forces at work are foreign spies, domestic interests protecting entrenched energy monopolies, classification and black budget secrecy, or simply tragic coincidence amplified by our tendency to see patterns, the cluster is genuinely concerning. Eisenhower feared the rise of misplaced power in the very systems that control cutting-edge science and defense. So, are we seeing the manifestation of those warnings? What do you think is really happening here? Is it bad luck? Espionage? Systematic suppression? Or something else entirely? Drop your thoughts below, along with any additional cases or sources in the comments. As always, I want to thank you all for stopping by the fire tonight. We'll keep monitoring the situation and get back together soon with a new full episode asking, what if Lord of the Rings is actual history? Till then, do your own research and never sell yourself short. Take care out there, and God bless.